Call the meeting to order. This is the October 1st, 2013 regular meeting of Medford Township Council. We'll begin with the open public meeting statement. Notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by 1, posting a copy of the agenda on the bulletin board at the municipal building and on the township website. 2, filing a copy of the agenda in the office of the township clerk at the municipal building. 3, forwarding a copy of the agenda to the central record in the Burlington County Times. 4, forwarding written notice to each person who has requested copies of the regular meeting schedule. All of the above posting, filing, and mailing have taken place on the 27th of September, 2013. Would you all rise for the flag salute, please? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Beanstalk?
Here.
Mr. Pace?
Here.
Mr. Watson?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Buoni?
Here.
Mayor Chekai?
Here. Next item is communications, scheduling matters, council agenda, presentations, and any amendments to the agenda. Proclamations, we don't have proclamations. All right, communications?
Yeah, I have one item real quick. I was asked last week if I would attend a brainstorming session with a couple of representatives from Medford Leaves, Jane Weston, another gentleman, their CEO, the developer of Wingate, Beth Porticalis, and Colleen Stover from Neighborhood Services Advisory Board. Jane Weston from Medford Leaves wanted to talk about senior services and program in Medford Township. They do a lot out there. The township has Cranberry Hall, and there are other groups throughout the township, other civic organizations. And she's interested in getting a one-stop shop where seniors can go together or get all that information, what's available to them, etc. I recommended that they bring representatives from the different civic organizations into it, let everybody put their heads together collectively, and the focus of it was simply meeting the needs of the township's seniors. So going forward, there's going to be a couple more sessions, and essentially there really is no action required by the governing body. I just want to make you aware of it, and should there come a point where they, want to do something and ask for the township's assistance, I'll make sure that you give that heads up.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
And you have anything, Chris?
I just have one agenda correction, no communication, sir.
Is that with regard to resolution 166?
160.
Or 160?
Yes, sir. Resolution 160, 2013, there was an addition to it, and the addition is now, therefore be it further resolved that resolution 156, 2013 is rescinded and replaced by this resolution. Originally, it was just correcting it. After further consideration, we want to actually rescind it, and that this resolution is superseded. It is a corrected amount for a tax refund that was done at the last meeting. And that's in front, hard copies in front of you.
All right, and next meeting is scheduled for October 15, 2013, here at the Public Safety Building, 7:30 p.m. Do we want to talk about the third meeting in October and whether or not we need to have a third meeting?
Council was invited to South Jersey Magazine event recognizing Medford and several other communities, and it is early that evening. I think it ends by 7. There is one item that will be discussed at the 15th meeting regarding the new sign ordinances and some tweaks to that, because of, now that it's in effect, we've had some testing going on, and the planner is prepared to come back and talk to you at that meeting. If council decided to act that night on any recommendation, it's possible you would take action as early as that meeting on the 29th. And we have a bill list that typically is done on the first meeting in a month, but the first meeting in a month in November is election night, and we're not having a meeting. So we don't have a meeting until the 12th.
Right.
So the thought was either cancel and or adjust. You could start late at 8 and presumably we'll only have a few items because, you know, I don't, at this point, I don't, you know, I won't know until the 15th exactly. So we could confirm this all on the 15th once we see
That's fine.
what we're doing going into the 29th. But obviously, I think it's important that council, the representatives attend on behalf of the community, especially if we're being, you know, being recognized for anything.
Don't do it last year.
Yeah, we don't have to get last year.
Yeah, I want to.
Oh, wait, yeah, you cut out, a short,
Yeah, we went after the meeting.
yeah, so, okay.
But it was a different, I mean, that ended later.
Yeah.
So we'll confirm at the next meeting how council
Right, that's
is.
fine. So, if we need to start at 8, is that a problem for anybody?
I thought the event started at 6:45.
It starts earlier, I think the presentations are at 6:45.
It's done by
Maybe,
7 o'clock.
maybe, I have to look at their.
Yeah, it doesn't take very long.
But it didn't seem like it seemed like it was over by 7.
Yeah,
That would be
I'll
fun.
double check that. Mhm.
yeah, and it's at Collinswood, so half hour.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the September 3rd, 13th, 2013 regular and executive meeting and the September 17th, 2013 regular and executive meeting. Anybody have any corrections, additions with regard to the minutes? Have you all had a chance to review the minutes? Anyone have any corrections or additions to the minutes? Do I have a motion for the September 3rd and September 17th, 2013 regular and executive minutes, approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Randy. Do I have a
Second.
second? Thank you, Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is manager. That's one?
I second it.
Yeah.
All right, that's perfect. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. First item I have is an approval for a social affairs permit. It is for the Medford Historical Society. The event is on October 19th, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at 211 Church Road at the Medford Historical Society Center for Education. Nothing in the investigation precludes approval by the governing body.
Okay, what's the date on
It's the Medford Historical Society's Center for Education.
that?
The date is October 19th, 2013, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay, all right. Do I have no, let's just have a voice vote for approval of social affairs permit, Medford Historical Society, October 19th, 6 to 10 p.m. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next two items are volunteer applications. One is an approval of Aaron Simony, new junior EMS member, and the second is Michael L. McDonald Jr., new fire member, Station 251 Union.
Okay, they've all been vetted and
Yes.
approved? Okay, all right, good. All right, so do I have a voice vote for approval of Aaron Chimney, or is it Simony?
I said Simony if I'm not sure.
Any of those individuals here tonight, Aaron or Michael McDonald? No? Okay. All right, voice vote for approval of Aaron Chimney as a new junior EMS member and Michael L. McDonald as a new fire member for Station 251. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Real quickly, I did just allude to the sign ordinances now that's implemented. There are a couple issues. The planner is working on a memo report to council. As soon as we get that work product, we'll distribute it, and it will be listed on the next meeting for discussion.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item, discussion items, professional services and other services task force draft amendments.
Okay, council has previously reviewed the recommendations that were made by the task force, and the matter was referred back to the task force to meet with the manager to address some operational concerns. We have done that, and we returned back on September 3rd, went over those with council tonight. We're bringing back to you two ordinances that are in draft, ready to go, and then just the changes to all the other ordinances that will be done all at one kind of document, maybe at the next meeting.
Needs to be put in.
Yeah. So the first ordinance is an ordinance of the Township Council of Medford amending and supplementing Article 7 of the Medford Township Code with Section 565, unauthorized billing and billing processing practices, vendor fiduciary duty, and violations and penalties. And as part of the recommendations, that specific safeguards and deterrents be established and codified to protect against any abusive billing or abusive billing processing practices through any willful conduct by vendors, town officials, or town employees. It also finds that in the recommendation, vendors must accept a fiduciary duty in performance of any contract with and on behalf of the township. And so this section 5-65, unauthorized billing and billing process practices, violations and penalties, would be amended into the budgets and fiscal procedures. And that any penalties would be subject to prohibited vendor practices, willful submission of bidding or billing documentation to the township containing materially false and or misleading information, willful engagement in collusive bidding activities intended to restrain fair and free bidding in a manner harmful to the township, willful submission of billing, invoice, and voucher for payment that is not in accordance with bid specifications. Then section B, vendor fiduciary duty. Any vendor awarded a contract by the township shall owe the township a fiduciary duty in its provision of goods or performance of services. Such fiduciary duty shall be a mandatory provision in the contract with the township. This contract shall further provide the township with option to terminate the agreement upon a vendor material breach of fiduciary duty. C, prohibited billing processing practices, elected and appointed officials, willful interference with a township employee implementing reasonable procedures to approve vouchers for payment, willfully causing a township employee to pay a voucher that would not otherwise be authorized for approval under this Article 7 of the Township Code, and willfully and inappropriately causing a township employee to award a contract to a vendor that would otherwise not be retained or hired by the township under the provision of the local public contracts law. Section D, prohibited billing processing practices township employees. Again, willful engagement in or allowance of collusive bidding activities by vendors intended to restrain fair and free bidding in a manner harmful to the township. Willful certification or causing the certification of a township voucher for payment without informed knowledge of the facts or without reasonable implementing procedures that material supplies and services have been received or rendered. And any violation of penalty is an engagement or participation in any of these activities would subject the violator to a fine not to exceed the statutory limit for an ordinance violation, currently $2,000, or imprisonment term not exceeding 90 days or both, such fine imprisonment in the discretion of the municipal judge, and the continuation for each successive day shall constitute a separate offense. And then violations of any provisions of this section shall, upon conviction, be punishable by provided in Chapter 1 of the new ordinance. So that is the one recommendation that council consented and we put into draft form for your consideration.
I just, the point I want to stress is with the fiduciary duty provision, it's going to be codified, it has to be in their contracts. And by codifying it by ordinance, it ensures that future councils follow the rules and practices. We keep it in its lasting compliance.
So one of the questions I had was, what happens if it's in the ordinance but it doesn't make its way into the contract?
Well, you're still subject to meeting the ordinance requirements. So I guess you would call it a mistake by codifying it, stronger position to the town that is a requirement, because the contractor's got to know the ordinance too.
So is it implied?
Yeah.
So would it, okay.
And Mr. Beastock, one of the things that we've talked about but haven't actually finalized is actually putting into form by resolution, or depending on if it's an award of a bid that council would act on or something internal, that the township dictate the agreement. A lot of times you get professionals that want to use, for example, architects like to use the AIA form. Well, you can use the form, we're going to attach it to our document as reference. Our document is what we want, and we can make sure it's all spelled out. So everything is kind of boilerplate, ready to go on our end as when we execute agreements.
And the scope of this entire ordinance, again, by codifying it by ordinance, you're ensuring that future councils be bound by these restrictions, which are good restrictions, and they correct the abuses that have happened in this town and county.
So the short order, basically, what we felt was lacking was the ability to locally enforce our laws. So in a scenario, for example, if I were to go to a township employee and lean on them to offer work or to get a contract to somebody who they otherwise wouldn't, that township employee or a member of the public could actually file a complaint with the police department, have me arrested, and for every count, I would be subject to a $2,000 fine plus 90 days in prison. So it gives us the ability, and I got to tell you, if this were in place 5 years ago, I probably would have pressed a few charges. And so now we have something that gives the public, people who are interested in holding their elected officials and the township employees accountable, this gives them teeth to do it on a local level, so we don't have to rely on the county or the state or the federal government. In some cases, we can take care of business right here. So, what was our thought as far as introduction? Next meeting, you want to review it?
I had some comments. Some are less material than others, but if it would be okay, I'd like to work with Mr. Norman to try to give him my comments. And have it worked out.
Okay.
So I
And as soon as we get them, we'll circulate and have it back to next meeting. Again, it'll be in ready form, so if council wants to move ahead as you've done in the past. Again.
Were there any that were material you want to discuss?
I don't think so. I think it's tightening up a little bit. There were some terms that I thought were just a little too general, that I just want to make sure we have firm understanding of what they are. One of them was the issue that we just talked about. It's just, I think I want to say that it's implied, so it's clear if it's not there. Because I could see very easily it's just not getting in there.
All right, no need for
Okay. Next one was an ordinance of the Township Council of Medford Township amending and supplementing section 5-56 of the Medford Township Code entitled Purchasing to incorporate the terms of the manager's policy manual. Again, a recommendation found that the township manager adopt a policy manual with respect to administration of implementing uniform standards for requisition and purchases for the examination, test checks, and inspection thereof. And the task force did meet with me, and we went through this process. So the amendment would be, the current language is all purchases of any supplies, materials, or equipment or contractual services for departments shall be made pursuant to procedures established by the manager. The addition would be such standards shall be contained in a policy manual, the terms of which are incorporated herein by reference as Exhibit A. Any amendments or changes to said procedures shall be reported to the Township Council during the manager's report section of Township meeting. Again, trying to honor the Faulkner Act, things that are operational, but still provide some notification that if a change is made, public and the council is made aware of those changes.
And changes have to be submitted
And
publicly.
the ability for council to question why that type of change would be made. The policy manual is in draft and is still being tweaked. Once I finish with it, it'll go to Kathy's office for her and the qualified purchasing agent to review, make sure I didn't miss anything operation from a practical standpoint, and then we'll try to get that wrapped up and finalized in short order as well. We're already operating under procedures and policies that were put in place. We're now codifying that into a manual. That's kind of what's happening now. Any questions?
Promulgating it.
Yeah, promulgating.
And it protects us down the road to, when you're not with us anymore, right?
Well, again, it doesn't matter who's in the manager's seat. Obviously, you want to get, the manager should have some certain discretions within the manager's authority under the Faulkner Act, but at the same time, there were changes I brought up a couple meetings ago in which the comp time policy for non-union employees was changed that added hours. It went from a real restrictive policy to a very broad policy in which non-union employees could bank and carry up to 80 hours in a period. And we've tightened that back to the original. So again, council and the public would not normally see that kind of stuff, but it does have a budget, it could have a potential budgetary impact depending on how it's applied. So these are the things we're trying to at least provide some notification process. It's still within the manager's authority, but there's a notice process, that's all.
Now, the one item that we talked about, which is the procedure for debarring contractors, As I understand it,
We'll
we've
do-
decided,
yeah,
okay,
we'll
we're gonna
cover
get
that,
there.
yeah, in the next part of this.
Do you anticipate that this ordinance will come to us at the same time that the first one does? Or will it take longer?
My preference would be this come with the policy manual.
Yeah, I think it has to.
Yeah.
Because it's referenced as Exhibit A, so they gotta come in.
Yeah, so, you know, as soon as that gets finished, these two will be back before you. But this is ready to go, it's
So we'll
kind
get the first one at the next meeting.
yeah, and then the other ones we're gonna go through now, although not informed, these are the language issues we're gonna go through each of these. All right, this first one is chapter 552. One of the recommendations had to do with the capital program and budget amendment. The current language is in the capital section of the budget doc, the manager shall include such capital projects and outlays as he may select from capital program, together with the relevant explanation and justification. What we're adding is, in addition, a summary of previously authorized capital bond ordinances, including but not limited to account, purpose of project name, amount authorized, amount expended, and amount balance shall be included. So when I present the budget going forward, there will be a section just, here's where some of these older bonds are and what's going on. I know there's a lot of gossip, rumors, whatever you want about a lot of this. It's standard for municipalities when they bond, when they borrow money and they spend it, depending on the language in the bond. So for example, if it's not strictly drainage at X, Y, and Z location, and it's just drainage, and there's funds still remaining, the staff uses those funds instead of borrowing more in the future to continue to do projects that it's going to have to do anyway to maintain its infrastructure. All this council is asking is, just keep us, you know, we, councils don't always check what's going on. So now we're gonna have a running kind of sheet that goes along with this for council as part of that document. Contracts, chapter 5-53. This is actually not a recommendation from the task force, it is my recommendation. The language right now is all contracts shall be signed by the mayor, attested by the clerk or deputy clerk, and approved by the township attorney for legal form and sufficiency. Purchase order for which formal contract is not required by the charter or general law may be executed by the manager without further approval. I'm asking because if you read some of our resolutions, it authorizes the mayor and or the manager. And a lot of towns do that because why? Mayors work full-time, the manager is here every day. So what we're suggesting, because we do it by practice now, we add after mayor, comma, or delegated to the manager by an appropriate contract award authorizing resolution. So it's still a public process that the governing body is delegating what would typically be an execution sometimes of the mayor to the chief executive officer during the day-to-day. So that's all we're doing there. Council is okay with that.
It's just a matter of who actually signs it document.
Yeah, the town's been doing it, so I'm just putting it into proper form. The next one, again, was purchasing. We've already recommended that in draft form earlier. The next one is emergency purchases. Now, the current language is the manager shall establish a procedure for the purchase of any item or items required for the immediate protection of the public health, safety, morals, or welfare, which will permit emergency purchases to be made for specific purposes in a manner other than prescribed by this article. You saw what happened to that in Medford. That was interpreted very liberally and applied very liberally with a certain contractor who utilized certain township assets as a base of operations. Earlier this year, I presented a policy change based on statutory language of how the emergency contract procedure operates. The state, one of the staff at the DLGS had asked me to share that with them. What we're doing is tweaking this. We're taking out the last other than prescribed by this article and putting in pursuant to NJSA 40A:11-6, which is the actual emergency process statute. Any amendments or changes to said procedure shall be reported to the Township Council during the manager's report section at Township meeting. So we have the policy in place you did by resolution. If we deviate from what's currently in practice, that deviates away from that statute, the manager has to report it.
Got it.
So we're just following statute. There was always a statute there. It was pretty clear what the process is. So we're just we're promulgating that into the ordinance. Purchase by quotation is the next section. This is not a recommendation, but The old ordinance was where purchases in excess of $3,150 are made without competitive bidding, and it goes on. The current threshold is $5,400. We have a qualified purchasing agent, we're following the statutory and regulatory process. So we're just making it consistent with the DLGS provision. However, I would like council to consider referencing the Division of Local Government Services. Every year comes out with what that threshold should be. It can go up and it can go down. Rather than keep coming back, because technically every time it changes, this ordinance should have been amended, which costs money. We follow the
Just
law,
tie it
we
to
follow
that.
it, we reference the finance notice that comes out each year. And so council will write that, Mr. Norman will integrate that into this section of the code. That way we're not constantly coming back to change a number by whatever.
It's a flexible number of policies.
But it's following what the executive branch of your state government is promulgating every year.
Is that a recommendation or is it a directive?
It's not a directive per se, but the state looks at all different financial indicators and says, all right, you have a qualified purchase aid and you can use this range. If you don't, you use this tighter range. The qualified purchasing agent, again, is licensed and again, they're protecting their license to protect the municipality.
Now, do we tie it to that whether or not we have a qualified purchasing agent?
It's automatic, it's in the local finance notice. The policy manual that I'm drafting actually has all the different thresholds. And it points out what Medford's current threshold is. So it talks about the base law, talks about what where Medford is at, and what the qualified purchasing with the qualified. So it spells it out. I have a little matrix in it, so it spells it out in the purchasing manual. So the next section is 561, vouchers and certifications. The recommendation was to name a responsible township official. The current language has it basically that no bill, fee, or claim shall be paid unless it contains a detailed statement of the items of demand, specifying particularly how the bill or demand is made up, and a certification of the party claiming payment that is correct. Nor shall any bill, claim, or demand be paid unless the voucher on which it is presented carries a certification of a department head or of a duly designated representative be assigned, having personal knowledge of the facts that goods have been received by or the services rendered to the township. Mr. Norman's ordinance kind of touches on this, but this substitutes department head or a duly designated representative now and substitutes responsible town official. And we still have to work on that definition, but that's where that falls. The definition has to be tweaked because the task force civilian rep was under the impression certain volunteers can sign off. There's no volunteer that signs off on purchase orders. It is a staff person, department head or a designated staff person that I designate and give authority to, or the CFO. So we don't know if there's, we just want to be clear that it can't be the head of the board. That's not appropriate, it shouldn't be. And so you want to go back through that definition and then share that definition with council.
Okay.
All right. The last item is the recommendation that the finance officer or director of finance have the ability to go out for a independent legal opinion. What we're adding is a chapter 5-69 under Division of Treasurer and Purchasing, a section G. The director of finance and/or chief financial officer may obtain independent legal opinions on uncertain billings and/or payments independent of the township attorney, subject to notification to the township manager and the township council, subject to the purchasing procedures and/or public contracts law. What this means is within the budget the council gives us, if the CFO feels that he or she needs an independent opinion, council or the manager doesn't get involved in that process. As long as it meets, now if it gets to a threshold value, which we don't anticipate, this may be a one-off, 1 hour consultation, which would fall under anything. But our opinion is that at least the council should not be involved in that appointment process.
Right, exactly.
Because what you're defeating the purpose of having an independent person and/or the attorney and/or the manager. The question came up by the task force civilian member, what if the manager said our council refused to pay the bill? The CFO, within her certification and under law, has a right to sign that voucher. So if the manager that was refusing, that can be executed if services were rendered in doing her.
Do we need to include that in there?
No, our opinion was no. It's clear in other laws for the CFO that govern this, the chief finance officer, that authority would rest with the finance officer. So those are the changes that we're recommending being codified into the town's administrative code. And if council has nothing further, we'll make Mr. Beanstalk will speak with Mr. Norman and get those changes out. We'll get the definition tightened up on responsible official. And Mr. Norman will promulgate these all into a format ready to go at the next council meeting. And then the other ordinance will just be held until we get the policy manual finished and wrapped up.
Great. That's good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, next item is South Jersey Gas renewal consent for use of streets.
Yes, we received a letter from South Jersey Gas regarding the continuance to use streets in Medford for the provision of natural gas service pursuant to statute. The 50-year agreement actually expired in 2011. We circulated a copy today, so it was executed in 1961, and it expired in 11, and they're now catching up to all their municipalities. Basically, it allows them to continue to provide service when they have to go in. They still are subject to repairing or fixing the roads to our conditions, and but we wanted to bring it to council first as a discussion, and if there are no issues, we'll prepare it. If you have no questions, the public affairs official offered to come up and council any questions, but it's pretty straightforward. So you have pipes in the ground now, you know.
I was trying to think of the downside.
Well, operationally, I wouldn't want to have to do these every time, come to you for independent, resolutions each time they want to do something in the street or the right of way. Unless there's something glaring that I haven't found anything, I don't know if Mr. Norman found anything, our recommendation would be to go ahead and enter into another consent.
I mean, have there been any problems that?
Not reported to my level. I don't believe, usually Public Works, if they're having an issue, South Jersey, most of the utilities are very responsive. But we haven't had any that I'm aware of, or Public Works that I'm aware of, so. We'll prepare it and have it ready at the next meeting. If council has any questions in between individually, let me know, and if not, we wait until next meeting, have a question.
Okay.
Nope.
All right, that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? If not, next item is public comment. I'd like to open the meeting to the public. Anyone having any business in the township, any comments, please step forward. State your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
Evening, gentlemen. My name is Al Finkelstein. I live at 107 Pinecomb Trail. It's nice to be here. It's the first council meeting for me. I am the parent of triplets, and I was moved to come here because in a few months we are going to observe the anniversary of an event that still makes my blood kind of run cold in our country. It happened in Newtown, Connecticut, where 20 elementary school children were killed, and 6 of their teachers were killed as well. And I was reminded of that event actually in the last couple of weeks with events that happened in Washington as well. So what I have come to ask and to request is, I know that a lot of towns in the area have, the mayors have signed on to resolutions with mayors against gun violence. I think it provides some good guidelines for steps that the federal government could take to prevent gun violence in our country, and I'm going to ask our council if they would consider that. And I asked this question a couple of weeks ago at the debate, and Mr. Beanstalk was quick to respond, and I appreciate that. But I realize now that I need to ask that question in this forum. So that's
Do you have a copy of?
I do, yes. I brought it with me. This is a statement of their principles.
Can I bring forward?
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that a sample resolution, or? We do that.
I haven't, usually any type of, like,
What's the organization?
organization or event would sometimes send us stuff. I haven't seen anything, so if there's an organization out there, I can get a sample. Or
Absolutely. It's on the web. It's Mayors Against Gun Violence.
I'll search it.
1,000 towns have signed on. Cherry Hill, Bordentown, Delran. A number of towns in the area have already signed on.
I think it makes sense to schedule this for discussion at a future council meeting.
It's fine.
Okay, I'll go to the website, I'll pull the information, get it to council, and then council.
Right, yeah, pull a resolution.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Good evening.
Good evening. Mike Riley, 5 Corkery Lane. I attended the debate at Bedford Lee's last week. Several things came up that left questions in my mind, and I hope you will answer some of those questions. It was brought up that $3.2 million was discovered as being available in bonds. What were those bonds supposed to be used for, and why was it that nobody knew about the bonds?
Mr. Schultz?
Yeah, it's not that this is found, the town passed bond ordinances going back to the 1990s. A lot of towns passed ordinances. Some of them were authorized, they were all authorized by action. Some were financed and spent against. You had some that had accounts like $100, $200. So, as I said earlier, I don't know if you're listening, there are bonds that, for example, you have $100,000 and you're projecting to buy a trash truck. You buy the trash truck for $80,000 and you have $20,000 left. So it should be canceled out if the project's done. Why the town didn't do any of that, I don't know. I can't go back historically and understand why. Some of the projects were pretty not strict, like for example, for drainage improvements. Well, a drainage improvement bond can be used for drainage-related infrastructure. So the town may go out and do the fix it had envisioned and still have money available to it that the staff uses to fix other drainage infrastructure, so as not to borrow new money. They're still managing using old money. There's not $3.2 million in cash. That was clearly articulated at both meetings that we spoke, that it was a combination of some was financed and some were authorizations. So the idea that there is this account sitting out there is not accurate, okay? It is accounts. Each authorization has its own account and process.
So it's the accumulation of all
Years.
these
And
accounts.
And one of the resolutions tonight is starting to cancel some of them. We talked to council about utilizing some of those authorizations for other projects. In other words, there was an authorization for Public Works to buy a medium-sized dump truck. They don't need a medium-sized dump truck. This town is operating with 2 old giant dump trucks for snow plowing that are beyond their shelf life and being band-aided. So we're asking council to reappropriate. You cancel that bond and you take the same bond and you move the money, the purpose of that money, to use it for that other specific thing. It's not like, so we came back to council with various recommendations on some of the things that were purposed before and why it wasn't followed through with. Again, I wasn't here. Some of the items were said you don't need to deal with. Others, I'm asking, again, I've been very vocal in my 2 years, 4 months that I want to improve the technology infrastructure of the township. It's dismal. We're in the 21st century operating on a 1997 platform with the website and the ability to do business with the township. So we came back to council at a meeting and presented all this. And then there are some projects the council decided they're going to decide whether they're going to cancel or they're going to utilize it for other purposes. That's within their policy discretion.
Okay, these funds, can they be used for anything?
No.
No.
That's another thing that I've understood is out there. They're capital money. You have to use them for what they were purposed for. They cannot be used for operational costs, they cannot be used to pay for salaries, insurance, and things like that. They're paid for the capital item in which they were purposed for.
Okay, but the accumulation was 3.2 million, is that correct?
Yeah, in that area, yes.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, Mr. Riley, there seems to be some perception out there that, you know, this should have been found a lot sooner because there's 3.2 million in cash sitting in a bank account somewhere. And when we reconcile our bank book every month, we see, oh, we've got an extra $3 million. Well, unfortunately, what those individuals don't quite understand is there's not 3.2 million in cash sitting in an account somewhere, as the manager stated. And the other misperception that, you know, we have, you know, just a few dollars in that account. We run close to $100 million in taxes through that account. So, and we dole out 20-some million a quarter to various agencies. So $3 million could get lost very easily if you even had that much cash in that type of account, where you wouldn't necessarily know from month to month, well, I got an extra $3 million in cash. But that's not even the case here. We don't have that sitting in an account.
The first I ever heard of it was at the debate, so that's why I'm asking
Yeah,
questions.
we actually did talk about, our very first budget meeting that we had, and I'll remind you that Mr. Schultz, I mean, think about it, when he first came in here, that council didn't even pass their budget until October. And it was an absolute train wreck, the people who preceded us in office, and they left the place in a complete shambles. And since October of 2011, Mr. Schultz has been through 3 budgets, okay? 2 of them having deficits of close to $6 million, okay, right? And then this last budget we just got through, we're now at a point where things are starting to become much more, we have a much more clear picture of our actual finances. That's why one of the changes we made tonight, or that we proposed with this ordinance, is that at the end of each budget cycle, or with each budget presentation, the manager has to let the council know how much of the bonds have been expended in our capital funds, how they've been applied, so that the council can get a close look that when we're appropriating money for certain programs or specific items as per the law, that is exactly what's being done with those funds. So what we had here was a complete mess, okay? And we tasked the manager, and it was his original idea, but we tasked the manager to go and figure out what exact money we had in the capital funds. Now, you know, it seems like some people think that there's just this file folder that he had to go over and open it up, you know, of unspent capital funds. It's not that simple. In order to track down this money, and you should listen to the words of the mayor pretty, you know, with a very intent ear, he does this at a very high level professionally. The man knows what he's talking about. He manages these types of accounts for large corporations. Okay, is that a fair statement? He's a professional. He's a money guy. And so, essentially, when Frank in particular speaks to these issues, he knows what he's talking about. What people are out there saying, it's just plain ignorance. And frankly, it's not a reflection. And the problem with it is this has all been done in the public. So if any of the people who are out there talking about this had even the slightest inclination to come to a meeting and actually listen to what was being said, they would know about this. Unfortunately, what we have is people who couldn't have been bothered to learn what was going on, and now they're out there saying things that aren't true.
But there were 3 members of the council there. And that
Yes.
left me with these questions because they didn't answer the answer he just gave. Okay, that's all I can tell you.
Mr. Riley.
That's what I heard.
Mr.
And
Riley,
listen,
I beg to
excuse
differ.
me, I'm not finished yet.
I
I'm not
beg to
finished.
differ. I
Okay,
did
but I'm
address
not finished. You did the same thing at the debate. You kept interrupting. Please don't interrupt me.
I don't ask this question.
Okay, had it been explained in that fashion, I think it would have answered my question. It wasn't explained in that fashion, and it left a lot of people wondering. Okay, the next item. Figures were held up, 2 budgets concerning the trash removal. One had $600,000 and some other thousands with it. The other was $900,000 plus. which was for this year, for trash removal. Now, when we privatized, we were told the cost of trash removal would go down. At first, the council members denied that there was such an increase. Then they said they would check into it. That's where it was left.
That again was explained during the budget, that when the operational costs were all factored in and we did some movement of, when we, for example, we moved the shade, I think, Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, a shade tree employee eventually went into the sanitation budget. Just because it says sanitation, those employees are doing other duties, brush pickup, leaf pickup. We started consolidating. So when you actually look at the budget in its entirety, the savings is still in the budget, and the budget is still a projection, okay? As houses come online, we are going to get billed by the vendor. That's all factored in. So you're looking at a line item that if I had just simply left the line item alone, you would see what I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
But we reallocated employees around. We're down to 10 employees. We felt that when we did this from a line item budget perspective, we're going to put these employees here. So when you really look at the bigger picture of the entire budget, there is still a savings in that budget,
Okay,
or we would be running higher.
How many people were laid off?
Well, again, Mr. Riley, just so you know, we actually had this exact conversation. It was a question that came from council to the manager
All right.
about.
Okay,
There were four-
at the
budget
debate,
discussion.
at the debate,
Okay, that's
which
a
is what
debate.
I saw and
Again,
heard.
I was not at the debate, so let me
The
answer.
answer was, we will check into it.
All right, if I may,
Sure.
and I don't want to interrupt you, just so we're clear. There's a distinct difference between budget and expenditure, okay? And what was presented, what was outlined was the township spent in 2010 X amount, in 2011 X amount, in 2012 X amount, okay? What we budgeted in 2013 was significantly different. But the actual savings for trash collection had nothing to do with that budget number, and I pointed that out. In regards to the bonds, the unexpended bond money, I was pretty clear on the fact that that money cannot be used for other purposes other than what it was intended.
Yes, you
I
are.
had 1 minute, when answering the initial question. It took Mr. Scholes much greater than 1 minute to respond. But I was crystal clear on the fact that that $3.2 million wasn't just found money, that it was bonded money, and in some cases, as little as $11. Okay, I was pretty clear on that. Now, whether somebody's interpretation, because of the compressed amount of time we had to discuss this, and having 6 people speak about one particular subject, you know, this was an opportunity for the public to engage candidates. It by no stretch of the imagination was a debate. It was a candidates night. It was billed as such, the format was laid out for the public, and the public's understanding of exactly what was said, again, I've said it 100 times. I'm available daily to discuss this with the public. This is all I do.
Let's let Mr. Riley.
Again.
What other questions do you have, Mr. Riley?
Okay, just a statement. It came up about the police and the fact that many people in the township do not feel safe because of the lack of police. The police themselves think there is a lack of police. I can tell you, I've heard that also. And I've never heard anybody who lives in the township say that they were satisfied other than members of the council or people that had a personal interest. So I can tell you that that's the perception.
Let me
You
ask,
may not agree with that perception, but that's the perception.
Mr. Riley, if I might, we spend roughly $8 million on public safety. And I guess the question is, are we not spending enough money, or are we not getting enough value for the money that we're spending? And it's a hard question to ask. I mean, there are a lot of expenses that go into public safety, but we take in, it just about expends our budget. Between our debt and our public safety, it just about expends what we take in. Is the number 5 million for, what's the total nut for public safety?
It is 8 million. 12 is around 8.
So
For the total, it's not police.
the problem is, we don't have unlimited funds. If we had unlimited funds, you know, there may be some things you look at, but we don't have that. So what we have to do, we have a responsibility to balance the needs of the community with the resources that are available to us. And believe me, we don't make decisions on a whim. We look at things very carefully. The thing that I find a little distressing about some of what you're, because I know you can't make all the meetings, but you've generally been here for the meetings. You see how we conduct things. You know full well that when I tell you that we dealt with, and again, that example of the 900,000 in the budget, we covered, hey, wait a minute, I thought it was going to be less money. And Mr. Schultz covered it. And we did indeed save a substantial amount of money by going to Casworth, and we are saving that money. Okay, we've got a township now that's being run a lot more efficiently. Those things were covered in our budget meetings, but unfortunately, people who weren't there, okay, who didn't listen, who couldn't take the time to actually get informed, are now out there basically telling residents things that aren't true. I can't control that, but what I can do is we come here, we put everything out in the open, and we make our decisions by the light of day. You know that, sir. I mean, you come out, you've been here.
Okay, the last thing that I have involves a person, and again, I read about this in the newspaper, Kevin Ellicott. Okay, he happened to be there at the debate. I saw him, I said, Kevin, how'd you make out with your problem? This guy is an Iraq veteran, an Iraq veteran. And we thanked him for his service by laying him off and not giving him 2 weeks or 3 weeks without pay, so that he could put in for a disability pension because of an injury he sustained on the job working for Medford Township. I think that is a disgrace. Okay, I'm a Marine retiree, he's a Marine retiree. I don't care if he's a Boy Scout retiree. That's not how you treat people. Okay, if you were an employee of Medford Township and you knew how he was treated, what would you think of your employer? You'd have no loyalty to them at all because they have no loyalty to you. And that's what you did to him. That was a disgrace that he was not given a couple of weeks without pay. Wouldn't cost you a dime so that the state could make a decision. The state might turn him down. The state might say yes. But this way, he has no chance. Just think what that does to the other employees of this district. They know that they will get shafted anytime you can shaft them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rowe. Anyone else? Sure, step forward, please.
Mike Panarello, 49 Georgia Trail.
Good evening.
Good evening. My big problem with that debate, and I want this clarified, and I hope it wasn't for voter reasons, but there was an opportunity to televise that debate. Now, from what I understand, the three opposition agreed that they wanted to televise that debate. And from what I understand, the three incumbents decided not to televise the debate. Now, I know everybody on this, and to a certain degree I respect everybody, some more than others, but all of you I respect. In consistency with transparency, and as a teacher who wants to invigorate students to get part of the democratic system at the ground floor, why wasn't that debate televised?
Well, to be quite honest with you, that's not a question for this body. That's a political question, having for the candidates. And-
I'm asking you to answer the question.
Well, I'm not running for office, so I really can't answer that question. And I don't think it's appropriate that that question be posed.
I asked the question.
It's not a
Forgive
council.
me if
It's not
it's
appropriate.
inappropriate.
It's not what we're here to do. We're
I'm
working.
trying to say to you that it was inconsistent
Okay, but
with this council's pledge of transparency.
Okay, well, I'm not
And
gonna
I
argue,
don't,
I'm not gonna argue, debate that point with you, but the point is, we're here for township business, that's not township business.
okay, I regret.
Mr. Panarella, I'm happy to answer that question.
So we're gonna-
When we're done with this meeting, and I'll do it publicly, I'll do it, you know, if you want to videotape my response, that's.
No, I don't need to, I just needed somebody to explain why.
Mr. Panarella.
You want me to say
again,
it?
Again, I'm happy to answer that question. What you're being told, okay, clearly what you're being told is not actually what happened. Okay?
We can answer that. We can
It's a
answer
political
that.
question.
I'd be glad to speak with you after the meeting.
Yeah, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make one more comment. As it relates to public safety, I've spoke with Chief Meter on a number of occasions. As it relates to public safety, directly after the meeting, which a resident, not of Medford, asked the question about whether we had enough police officers. And Chief Meter responded, no, we didn't think we had enough officers. And that was pretty much the extent of his response. Having had family serve in uniform, having served alongside of people in law enforcement for a number of years, I have to tell you, if we could post soldiers and law enforcement at every hazard, you know, we would have less crime. Chief Meter's response to me when I approached him after that meeting and had that discussion was, Mr. Pace, I never intended for anyone to believe that Medford was unsafe. I certainly would like to have more officers, but I also understand as the chief of police in Medford Township that my budget doesn't support more officers. When Medford gets to the point where it can sustain the financial obligations to support hiring more police officers, I'm all for it. Anybody that believes that I'm not willing to hire police officers is kidding themselves. Anybody that believes that I think putting Medford's safety in jeopardy for the sake of saving money is nuts. Again, I rely on the township manager and the chief of police to give me the best information where that's concerned. Again, I encourage all of the public to make arrangements to speak with Chief Meter directly, rather than taking it word of mouth, rather than making an assumption. Go and gather factual information and then make your determination whether or not there's a problem that needs to be addressed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Brief comment as well, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
You know, one thing I want to point out is crime is down 17% this year in Medford. And that's not as an excuse for how many officers we have. I think the reason that we're having this is because we have police officers that, in spite of their numbers being lower than they have been in the past, have worked extremely hard to keep this town safe. And they deserve a lot of credit for everything. Thank you.
Anyone else? No, I don't think anybody would argue with the fact that the chief has stated time and time again that he thinks he could use more officers, and again, I wouldn't have any problem hiring more officers as long as we could sustain it financially. And at this point in time, we're just not in a position where we can sustain that. I mean, quite frankly, I'd like to see us hire 5 new officers. That would be nice to have 5 more officers, and it would give a break to the officers we have. But, I mean, given the current state of our financial situation, we don't have the funds. And that's just the facts. That's just the reality. we don't have the funds to do it.
Because of our debt primarily.
So,
That's why we're so interested in paying it down as quickly as possible.
but, you know, I don't think anybody up here would argue the fact that they would like to see more police officers hired. You know, when I have a professional law enforcement officer who's in charge of our police department, say he'd like more officers, I'm not a professional law enforcement officer. I don't know what's involved, you know, other than what I've learned over the past few years with running that department and manning a police force of 40 square miles. So I've got to take his word for it that you know, when he says he needs more officers, he needs them. But again, it's just a matter of finances. We just don't have the funds right now. But that will change soon because of the way that we're you know, garnering efficiencies in other areas, paying off the debt that we have, and that debt will reduce over the next few years, the debt payment. And that will free up funds that we can use for other things, one of which being public safety. So, all right, with that, any other comments from the public? If not, do I have a motion to close the public portion?
So moved.
Thank you, Chuck. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Randy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is bill list from September 25th, 2013, and September 26th, 2013. Has everybody had a chance to review the bill list? If so, get questions answered that you had with regard to specific items?
There's one item, I don't have the PO number, but it's Adler Excavating that we're going to pull due to potential litigation and put it into executive.
13-01446 is the PO number.
Okay. All right, so any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself from few of the purchase orders that are on the bill list. It's the September 26th bill list. The first one is on page 11. Page 11, and it's purchase order 13-01498. And the second one is on page 17, and it's purchase order number 13-01500. In both cases, the vendor is applying.
Kathy, I don't know if PFM's on there, but in case PFM's on there, I recuse myself.
I don't think they are, but just in case these comments.
All right. Anything else? All right, so do I have a motion to approve bill list from September 25th, 2013 and September 26th, 2013 with the, we're going to pull the invoice for Adler Construction and move it into executive under potential litigation, and with the amendments with regard to Mr. Beanstalk for, I guess, invoice 13-0498 and 13-01500. Is that it?
Correct.
Okay, and then
I didn't see anything.
with Deputy Mayor, and if there's anything on there from PFM, he's going to recuse himself from that as well. So do I have a motion with regard to those two bill lists?
So moved.
Thank you, Randy. Do I have a second? Thank you, Chris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item is ordinances for second reading, public hearing, and this is ordinance 2013-12. Actually, we had second reading at the last meeting, and we held the public hearing open on this ordinance and for amendment with regard to the time that the loading zone was going to be established for. Originally, it was scheduled for 8:30 till
8:30 to
10:30. And subsequently, we've determined that it could be modified from
9 to 10.
From 9 to 10.
Yes.
And we have both versions of the ordinance here.
Yes.
And the question is, which one do we want to move forward with?
Well, we held it open for public comment. I would be curious if there is any public comment, and if not, I would recommend that we close public comment, and assuming that there isn't anything else substantial, pass the ordinance on second reading with the new hours.
I would concur with that.
I would too. I just have a question for Mr. Norman, just to clarify, that is not a material change that would require us to.
It is not.
I would agree to.
All right, then, I'll open the ordinance up for public hearing. I'll reopen it. Ordinance 2013-12.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before, because we did technically close it at the last meeting, so I think we need a
Did we?
motion to adopt.
All right, we'll just go through the,
We left it open. So we need a motion to adopt?
You made a motion to adopt as it was before, and then you said you made a motion to table it
Oh,
to
you're
discuss
right,
the
you're right. Okay.
hours. So we really should motion to adopt, correct?
All right.
If council
Correct,
wants
with
to
the
go with
amended
the
time.
9 to 10 time,
Right, okay.
that's what they're going to ask.
All right, so I make a motion that ordinance 2013-12, an ordinance to amend and supplement the code of the Township of Medford, Chapter 140 thereof, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, to add a new section, 140-6.2, within Article 2, establishing loading zones carried from 9/7/13 Township meeting, with the hours changed 9 to 10, and that we pass on second reading.
all right, thank you, Randy. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All right, at this time, I'd like to open the ordinance to public hearing, ordinance 2013-12. Anyone in the public here to make any comments on ordinance 2013-12 with regard to establishing a loading zone in front of the library in order for the county to have a space to unload books and materials on a daily basis? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 2013-12?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, Chris. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, any comments from council? All right, so we're going to adopt the version with the changed hours from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Okay, as opposed to 8:30 till 10:30.
Yeah, actually, I do want to make a comment. I just want to thank Randy, Councilman Pace, because that was a small catch, but, would have been kind of inconvenient to have that spot open for a half hour from 10 to 10:30, and it really wasn't necessary, so nice catch, Randy.
Okay. Anything else? All right, if not, can I have a roll call vote for adoption?
Mr. Beanstalk?
Aye.
Mr. Pace?
Aye.
Mr. Watson?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Bonney?
Aye.
Mayor Chekhov?
Aye. Okay. We have the ordinances for first reading. So the next item is consent agenda resolutions. And we have modifications in the beginning, correct?
Yes, resolution 160, we're just adding the language again.
All right, at the bottom it
Yeah.
says.
Now therefore be it further resolved that resolution 156-2013 is rescinded and replaced by this resolution.
Okay, all right, that's fine. All right, so we have resolution 158-2013 authorizing refund of 2013 overpayment due to tax appeal, block 43, lots 2 and 2Q. Resolution 159-2013 authorizing refund of 2013 water sewer application overpayment. Resolution 160-2013 as so modified, amending resolution authorizing refund of 2013 tax overpayment block 2902, lot 7. Resolution 161-2013 pledging support for the state of New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety's Put the Brakes on Fatalities Day. Resolution 162-2013 authorizing refund of 2013 tax overpayment block 404, 5.11, Lot 1918, Dorset Drive. Resolution 163-2013, authorizing refund of 2012 tax overpayment blocks 6504, Lot 9.01, 730 Bradley Hollow Road. Resolution 164-2013, authorizing refund of 2012 tax overpayment block 6801, Lot 5.02, Crowfoot Road. Resolution 165-2013, authorizing refund of 2013 tax overpayment block 2703, Lot 18, 35 Little John Drive. Resolution 166-2013, amending the Township of Medford 2013 year municipal budget by insertion of a special item of revenue and appropriation from the State of New Jersey Division of Purchase and Property on behalf of the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission, New Jersey Motor Vehicle Security and Customer Service Act grant. Resolution 167-2013, authorizing refund of 2013 homestead rebate block 5102.03, Lot 5. Resolution 168-2013, authorizing execution of an interlocal service agreement between the Township of Medford and the Burlington County Institute of Technology for the service of providing a school resource officer at the Burlington County Institute of Technology, Medford campus. Resolution 169-2013, amending the Township of Medford 2013 year municipal budget by insertion of a special item of revenue and appropriation from the Burlington County Institute of Technology for an interlocal service agreement for police services. Resolution 170-2013, resolution declaring certain general capital improvements completed. Resolution 171-2013, amending the Township of Medford 2013 year municipal budget by the insertion of a special item of revenue and appropriation from the State of New Jersey Division of Highway Safety for the 2013 Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over Labor Day Crackdown Grant. Resolution 172-2013, authorizing the cancellation of certain grant fund receivable balances and reserve balances. Resolution 173-2013, authorizing refund of 2013 tax overpayment block 3803, Lot 12, 29 Forest Avenue, block 4803, Lot 10, 6 Chipping Woods Court, blocks 5106, Lot 24, 2 Stafford Circle Road. And then Resolution 174-2013, resolution by the Medford Township Council authorizing execution of addendum to extend the contract of Hardenberg Insurance Agency, the Township Risk Management Consultant through January 14th, 2013.
That's actually January 31st.
January 31st.
2014.
All right, through January 31st, 2013. All right, do I have a motion? Or do I have 2014, I'm sorry. So it's.
The resolution reads correct, Mayor, it's just on the agenda.
January 31st, 2014. Okay. So, any questions with regard to any of the resolutions? All right, if not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda resolutions as so stated?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Beanstalk. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Watson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is executive session, resolution ES 1001-2013, matters related to litigation, negotiation, and attorney-client privilege relating to the Singer House, matters relating to the purchase, lease, or acquisition of real property, or the investment of public funds, Cal Point, matters relating to the purchase, lease, or acquisition of real property, or the investment of public funds, parks and playground equipment, matters relating to purchase, lease, or acquisition of real property, for the investment of public funds, tax liens of various properties, matters relating to litigation, negotiations, and the attorney-client privilege, relating to the Latigonia matter, and matters relating to litigation, negotiations, and the attorney-client privilege relating to the Abbott construction invoice. Is there anything else?
Yes, sir.
No? All right, do I have a motion for, to approve, resolution ES 1001-2013?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Watson, thank you, Mr. Woodstock. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. How long do you think we'll be?
Half hour.
All right, half hour.